I'm autistic, and I've been wanting to run a podcast for a long time, almost since I started making videos. And since my motto for this year is "a life deferred is a life discarded," I figure it's time to do the things that I say I want to do. Now, the format for this podcast is going to be pretty flexible, and the tech setup is incredibly low budget for now, but I think we're going to have a fun time regardless. The first episode is me flying solo, but we'll get guests on in the future to regale me and you about all the stuff I find interesting. My name is Fritz Johnson, and you are on the Fritz. This episode is sponsored by me. I'm a realtor serving clients in Phoenix, Arizona, and around the world. If you need to buy or sell a home, I would be thrilled to help you do it. Send me a DM on Instagram if you want to talk real estate. So, first up, the big reveal, I am going to Thailand. But just to clarify, not in a weird way. I got invited by my friend Zach Wilson, someone I do software work for, to fly to Thailand and hang out with him and some other creators for free. I was thrilled to say yes. Zach is one of my favorite people, and I've never been to Thailand before. But funny story, when I got my photos taken to have my passport renewed, the woman at the UPS store was super in my business about where I was going. I told her that I didn't really want to say, not because I have anything to hide, but because I didn't want to interact with her, and I was kind of annoyed by the prying question. Once I said that, though, she said something like, maybe you're going to Thailand or something, which I think was her calling me a pervert because she was mad. In any case, she was spot on, albeit not from the reason she thought. I'm flying out in a couple days on Wednesday the 28th and getting back on April 15th. It should be an incredible adventure. We'll see how it goes, but I'm optimistic. The last time was a few years ago when I went to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico with my dad, his friend, and the woman that I thought I'd marry. And that was a really special trip, even if it didn't work out with my then girlfriend, It was the time that I got mildly held hostage by a taxi driver when I was trying to leave the country. And, maybe I'll tell that story later in the episode if I have time. But this one's going to be a big step up on the adventure scale. I do trust the people I'm going with, though. I went on a trip to Utah last August with Zach, and it was a life-changing and incredibly fun experience. We went on hikes, we went out dancing, and we had chicken fights in this natural hot spring. It was a great time. Really shifted my perspective on a lot of things. But I will say that Zach is a wild guy. This is not going to be a very dangerous trip in absolute terms, at least I hope. But it probably is going to be 100 times more dangerous than my typical day-to-day life. And on that note, Thailand has a reputation for a certain act that is illegal in the U.S., except for certain counties in Nevada. And I will not be partaking in such. I don't find paying for that very appealing. And frankly, the diseases I could get make it even less appealing. So, is what it is. It's probably just going to be a fun beach trip near Pattaya City with some fellow content creators. Nothing too crazy. I'll do some work and I'll collab more closely on software stuff with my team while I'm there. But it should be pretty low stress overall, which is really what I need right now. Life has been hectic lately between tax season and the rest, and I'm excited to turn it down a couple notches. And I'm excited to bring you guys along for as much of it as I can. Hopefully I can get Zach on this podcast. He is a genuinely incredible and funny guy who is also really, really good at making money. Fingers crossed I don't get any exotic diseases, though. I had a friend telling me to look into all the special vaccinations for this trip, like typhus or something, and I never did, so we'll see. One thing I am grateful for is that flights should be a lot more bearable than the last time I flew across the Pacific Ocean. I went to Australia when I was pretty young, and my Game Boy battery died in the first few hours of the flight. I've never really been a patient guy, but a 13-plus hour flight is especially brutal on a 7-year-old who is averse to boredom. I ended up standing in the aisle and watching some old Australian dude play Advance Wars, which was this real-time turn-based strategy game, on his Game Boy Advance just to stay sane. It is kind of odd looking back that I didn't have a book, though. I read a ton at that age, all kinds of stuff. I still remember getting to chase a baby kangaroo around in a zoo, which was top 10 life experience. I loved that. I got yelled at for it, but still, fun times. I still remember getting to see one of those cassowary birds, these big hook, build things. They get these big claws. They look like dinosaurs. Look them up sometime. We were out on an outback excursion. We saw one of those things. It was the best. I still remember eating Australian-style pancakes that come with ice cream on top at breakfast one day. Again, top 10 life experience when we first discovered those. My whole family gained 20 pounds after we found out about those, and we started making them at home here in the U.S. for a while. Not pretty, but they were delicious, So I've never been to any part of Asia, unless you count Fiji, which is kind of like Oceania or whatever. But I do think that Thailand will be the same sort of thing. If it hasn't reshaped my perspective on the world, at least somewhat, I think I'll leave disappointed. I will say that the flight shouldn't be nearly as brutal this time, thankfully, because now we have Wi-Fi and electrical outlets on planes. Thank God. I'm going to try and write a bunch and maybe do some coding while I'm on the plane. Luckily, the long flight from Seattle to Taiwan leaves pretty much at midnight, so I'll be able to sleep for a lot of it. And from Taiwan, it's just one more flight to Bangkok, then a 1-hour taxi ride to the villa we're staying at near Pattaya City. So it shouldn't be that bad. Well, it's going to be a long trip, but I'll survive. Beyond just getting some rest in, though, I'm excited to use that time to focus and plan out some of my content over the next, few weeks or months, because I want to get back on the weekly newsletter thing I was doing a while ago, or at least something like it. The tough part is I often don't feel like I know what to write about. But the truth is, I always have something I want to say. It's just a matter of whether I feel it's a good fit for the audience I have. The lesson I keep having to relearn here is that if I find it interesting, my audience usually will too. Every time that happens, I just see it over and over and over again, is that if I love something, some chunk of my audience will love it too. And I don't have to worry about, that they're here for me. They're not here for, anyway. But yeah, I need to seek validation less. This is something I'm thinking about a lot, is that I need to seek validation less and just march to the beat of my own drum. It is what has always worked for me. If I do my own thing, people will love me for that almost every time. And that's kind of exciting in a sense, because it wasn't always that way. But if I see an opportunity that I find awesome and I don't jump on it, I inevitably feel terrible about myself. So, I don't know, that's a lesson I have to learn, I guess, is that if I just go after the things I love, things are going to work out. And if I don't, that's when things fall apart. So, in any case, life is too short to deny your passions. And guys, if you're still here, now is a great time to subscribe to my Substack to get full episodes of my podcast delivered when they come out. I guarantee you the content you get from it will all be killer, absolutely no filler. You can find the link in the show notes. But there's something that all this talk of passions makes me want to bring up. As some of you know, I've gotten into the real estate business as a realtor, helping people buy and sell homes. I've been adjacent to the real estate space for a long time. Most of what I know about posting on social media is from my time on real estate Twitter. Also, my mom's side of the family is big in commercial real estate. After all, my late grandfather Sidney and one of my uncles are some of the coolest people I know, and they lived and breathed real property. But I will say that it's kind of a weird fit for someone with autism for a number of reasons. And people sometimes look at me weird when I tell them that I'm pursuing it as a career. Autism and the associated symptoms don't always play nicely with the job description of a realtor. You have to be attractive, personable, and good at managing a lot of documents and deadlines, for instance. But there are 3 reasons I'm confident that it's going to be a good path forward for me in spite of all of that. One is that I've gotten good at things that autistic people aren't supposed to in the past. Social media, for instance. How many autistic social media influencers do you know? Not a ton. I'm gonna find a way to make it work, like I have before. 2 is that I've got some really incredible people around me. Most notably, Nick El Tawil, or the Tawillionaire. He and I met a year and a half ago at a Twitter real estate meetup, and over the last few months, he has been guiding me in the real estate business. Between him, DeAndre Wright, and Morgan Haas, aka Mr. and Mrs. Wright House, I've got some really solid people who know their stuff around me and want me to succeed. Finally, I have a very unique skill set. My tech chops and my success marketing on social media has and will open a lot of doors for me in this business. The typical realtor is just not that good at technology, or social media for that matter. So I think I can be particularly competitive on those fronts. I figure that if many people know me as a likable, dependable guy who they can trust about real estate, I will do just fine. Okay, so we still have time to fill here. Let's talk about how I got kinda held hostage during my trip to Mexico. I was there with my then girlfriend, my dad, and his friend, and the week we spent in Cabo was pleasant, relaxing, and mostly unremarkable. It was a lot of sitting in the pools of the resort and drinking weak, albeit bottomless, frozen beverages. Plus a couple of excursions to go snorkeling or out to eat. You get the idea. Now, I really enjoyed the resort, even if it was kind of a basic experience. It's a timeshare kind of setup where nothing was that good, but the weather was perfect in early November, especially compared to how it was in New York City, where I lived at the time. The most memorable part of the trip was right at the end, and unfortunately, that wasn't a great part of the overall thing. My girlfriend and I were riding in a private shuttle, an SUV I'd hired to take us from our hotel to the airport, about an hour north. And about 20 minutes before we arrived at the airport, our driver took a short phone call. Despite growing up in Fresno, California, I didn't know quite enough Spanish to keep up with what was being said. But after he hung up, he pulled off the freeway we were on and stopped on the side of the road. He turned back to look at us in the backseat and explained, in dramatically worse English than he used when he greeted us at pickup, that we weren't the party he was sent to pick up, and that he'd have to turn around and take us back to the resort instead of the airport. Now, we had built in plenty of time to get to the airport well before our flights, but not the 3+ hours it would take to make the trip north all over again. We were gonna miss our very expensive flights unless I could convince the driver to take us the rest of the way. Now, despite my autistic challenges around social cues, I recognized almost immediately that we were being squeezed for cash. He had us by the cojones, and he knew it. What could I do? We were in a stranger's SUV in the middle of nowhere in a foreign country. My girlfriend and I had no self-service and no time to deal with this. So I promised him I'd tip the $200 I had in my wallet if he took us straight to the airport instead of back to the resort. And he was content with this. So some 10 minutes later, we pulled up to the airport's unloading lane for international departures. During the last 10 minutes of the ride, my girl and I were each typing into our respective notes app, flashing silent messages back and forth about what we should do. She wanted me to just pay him off and let it go. But I wasn't so sure about that. Once we stopped at the curb, I raced to the trunk to grab our luggage, but our driver beat me there. My nerves eased a bit when he quietly unloaded our bags and handed them over without demanding his promised payment first. So we had our belongings, and it was time to flip the switch. I gave my girl a look, and we started walking into the terminal at a forceful pace without another word. He was surprised, and he started to follow us into the terminal, shouting and insisting that I pay him, and that he'd get the police involved. I took a breath and told him to take it up with the resort we booked through, and then stopped acknowledging him. As we continued walking deeper into the terminal, he seemed to realize that his vehicle would be ticketed or towed from the drop-off curb if he kept up his pursuit. Scowling, he turned back. His scam had failed, on us at least. Even so, my heart didn't stop racing until we were through security and I was sipping on the final margarita I would drink in Mexico. We got on our flights without much trouble, and that was that. Funniest part is, I couldn't have paid him if I wanted to. My wallet was empty. Now, this story is crazy and true, but similar challenges, albeit with lower stakes, play out in our lives every day. Being able to interact with people, including dishonest ones, in a way that accomplishes your goals is an incredibly important skill. So, that's the PSA for the day, I guess. And again, this episode is sponsored by me. I'm a realtor serving clients in Phoenix, Arizona, and around the world. If you need to buy or sell a home, I would be more than thrilled to help you do it. Send me an Instagram DM if you want to talk real estate.